Hello and welcome to my video. In this video I'm going to adopt an alternative approach to proving the quadratic formula. So given the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals naught, derive the quadratic formula x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So again, we're going to complete the square, but I'm just going to do an alternative approach. In my other videos, I have eliminated a, so I've divided across by a as a first step. So we have x squared plus b over ax plus c over a equals 0. So in the following approaches, I'm not going to do it that way. So I'm going to do it slightly different. So let's get into this. So I'm going to do two approaches. They're both completing the square. They're very similar, and the difference is we don't remove a this time like we did in some of the other videos. So let's go for the first one. So again, I'll just write the equation down again, just to keep organized. Okay. So as I say, we divided by a in a previous video. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to multiply by something. So this whole thing equals 0, so we can do whatever we like to this. We can divide by anything, any number we want. We can multiply by any number we want. It doesn't change it. It's still going to be 0, isn't it? The only thing we can't do, obviously, would be to divide by 0. Division by 0 is not allowed, obviously. Okay. So approach 1, we're going to multiply across by 4a. So I'll just write it in small on the left. Okay, and that'll give us 4a squared x squared plus 4abx plus 4ac equals 0. And already, what do you notice something about this? Already the 4ac is appearing here. And you'll notice there's a 4ac in the formula. Okay, but let's not get too excited just yet, but at least that's a good positive indication. Okay, so now this is where we actually complete the square. We complete the square on this first two terms which involve x. We don't need to complete the square on the 4ac part, just the bits that involve x. Okay, now you'll notice this is 4a squared x squared, so this can be rewritten as 2ax all squared. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to write that down on the next line. I'm going to combine that with this bit. So we're going to write it as something plus something squared. Okay, so we need to incorporate the 4abx as well. Okay, now as a side note, you should know from algebra that a plus b squared, where a and b is any number, is equal to a squared plus b squared plus 2ab. So when you add two things together and square it, it's equal to the square of the first one plus the square of the second one plus twice their product. Okay, so we're going to be using that here as part of completing the square. So this is where this 4abx comes in for the twice their product. So this is twice of what? This is twice 2abx. Okay, and this is 2ax all squared. Okay, so we need to get that term down first. Okay, so let's get that down. So that's 2ax. Okay, plus, so let's start putting our brackets and getting our squares and things. Okay, so that's 2ax plus, so what goes in here? Well, as I say, we need a 2abx here because we're going to be taking double of it, double the product. So if we double that, we get 4ax, and that still leaves us with a b. So that's just going to be b. And then we close the bracket and square it. Now, this is identical to this, apart from the fact that we now have a b squared as well. That's our surplus, so we need to subtract that off to compensate. Okay, so 2ax plus b all squared is 4a squared x squared plus 4abx plus b squared. So we've added in a b squared, so we need to take it back out again. So we've now completed the square on this, and then remember the 4ac at the top, and that equals 0. So now we're just going to isolate anything involving x on the left, and I'll move everything else over to the right. These are just constants, these are just numbers. They don't depend, on x. Okay, so let's move all that over. So 2ax plus b squared, and that's equal to b squared minus 4ac. Again, we've only done 3 lines, and already it's shaping up. It's looking really good, isn't it? It's very encouraging. Look, now we have a b squared minus 4ac. In the formula, we have a b squared minus 4ac. So it's looking really, really good. And every line from here on in is just, you almost feel like you're touching the solution. It's just within spitting distance. So let's take square roots. And don't forget your plus minus, because when you take a square root, you get 2 solutions. You get the negative or the positive. And look at that. So again, we're even closer now. Okay, all we have left to get now is the minus b and the 2a on the denominator. Okay, and that's the next couple of lines. So we can do the minus b now on the next line. So that's equal to minus b . There we go, that wasn't too hard, was it? And now we're just going to finish it off. We've just got a 2a here to divide across by. Wow, that wasn't too hard, was it? Now for me personally, of all the different methods and ways of doing this, I would say that's probably the slickest. Definitely the slickest. So the trick there was to start off with the original equation, and the trick was to multiply it by 4a. And from there onwards, as long as you know how to complete a square, obviously, and then from there onwards, it's very basic algebra. Squaring, taking square roots, moving terms to the other side, dividing by constants, etc., etc. Nothing very difficult there. I mean, every line we did, I mean, from that point onwards, when we saw the 4ac, I was getting excited. And then every line there onwards, it was just getting so much better each time. You know, we could see the solution. We could see the solution before writing the next lines down. Well, I could see it anyway. Okay, so that involves, as I say, multiplying by 4a. So let's just do one final little approach. There is another way you could do it. Why you would want to, I don't know. This is probably going to be the most efficient and slickest way to do it. But let's just look at another little way, which is very similar to that. It's like a cousin of that, but we just multiply it by something else. We don't multiply it by 4a. So what other way could we have done it? Well, we could have multiplied it just by a. So let's try that. So if we do it just by a, we get that. And again, we just want to complete the square on the terms involving x. So we're going to have an ax all squared to get that. We're going to have twice the product of something to get abx. So we're going to have a b, so 2axb, axb, abx, 2abx, but then obviously we need to divide by 2, okay, because 2 times b over 2 is b, times ax is abx. Okay. And now we can square that. And again, similar to what we did over there, if you remember what we did over there, whatever we added in here, this bit here, and then inside the bracket, this last term before we squared it, this needs to be taken back out. We need to subtract that back off. We added in a b, and that was all squared, so we need to take a b squared back out. So here we're going to be taking out a minus b over 2 all squared, because we have b over 2 all squared as a surplus now. And just to prove that again, so ax all squared is a squared x squared. Twice their product is abx. So we've got all that. The only thing we don't have is the b over 2 all squared. So we need to take that back out. And then obviously we have our still have our AC at the top. Okay, so I'm not going to touch this for now. Let's just tidy this up. In fact, what we'll do is we'll move the minus b squared, minus b over 2 squared plus AC, move that to the right. Okay, so that then becomes a plus b over 2 squared and minus AC. Okay, now again, this term on the left hasn't changed. We haven't touched that. Okay, and then let's just multiply this out. Let's just expand this out. Okay, now from here there's various ways we can tackle this from this point forward. But what I'll do, I'll just do it the way I would initially do it. My sort of instinctive way would be to tidy this up. So what would that be? So that would be b squared minus 4ac all over 4. Okay, again, this left hand side hasn't really changed. In fact, it hasn't changed at all, so we'll just rewrite that down again. I'll just put the little double quotation marks so you know that that's just repeating itself all the way down. Okay, so what can we do now? Well, we could take square roots, or we could bring the 4 over to this side and simplify. I'm going to take square roots. In fact, what I'm going to do is, because that is very close to that, so let me write it like this, because it's almost touching the next line. Okay, so again, I'm going to take square roots. Now, if we take square root of 4, we get 2, so that's over 2. Okay, and remember your plus and minus. Okay, right, so now we can bring our b over 2 term to the right hand side. So ax equals minus b over 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2. And then we just simply divide across by a. So when we divide across by a, we get x equals minus b plus or minus square root. I'm going to put the 2 up there, sorry. Just ran out of room there, so ax equals minus b over 2 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2. I just want to have enough room to write it in the form that we have at the top. Okay, so x equals minus b. So that's it there, because all we've done there is we've divided across by a, and then I've just combined the numerators. Okay, I've probably skipped a line, but you get the idea. Anyway, I only showed you that because it's an alternative way of doing it. Okay, multiplying by a. I wouldn't personally do it that way. Okay, as you can see, that way was a lot slicker, and I wrote less stuff down. So if you're doing this in an exam or whatever, if you're asked to prove this, I would do it this way. I would go for this approach every day of the week. Okay guys, well I hope you found that useful. I'm going to do another video, one last video on this quadratic formula. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do it in reverse. So look out for that video. So it's the quadratic formula in reverse. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be saying, we're going to start off with the formula. We're going to say, given that x equals minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, given that's true, show that ax squared plus bx plus c equals naught. So we're doing it in reverse, okay? So I'm going to be doing that in another video coming up very soon. So keep your eyes out for that. Okay guys, thanks for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe.